Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the NRW. I'm your host, Rob Medina, and I thank you all very much for joining me here today because today I'm going to be reviewing the movie Drifted. I actually heard about this film in a conversation that I had with the star of the movie and Colleen Elizabeth Miller on my show, You're So Cool with Rob Medina, not too long ago. And what led up to her discussing about the film was that if I recall correctly, I had asked her a question about if she ever gone back to revisit her work that she had worked on a number of years back or whatever the case may be. And to pretty much state the answer, she pretty much said no. But around that time, she had seen this movie, Drifted, at a festival. And she said that she had, she had forgotten a lot of the things that occurred in that film. That when she went to go see the movie at these two festivals that it had premiered at, she was actually quite impressed with what she was able to pull off in this respective role that she plays the character of Maggie in this movie. And she also had won a reward as well too. And there was also another part of the conversation she brought up the fact that she had seen the movie with her mother. And when you see the film, I'm hoping you guys will check it out. You'll notice that there are some pretty dark turns that this character takes here, especially for the fact that the character goes through a lot of domestic abuse, among other things as well too, that would certainly make a parent quite uncomfortable to watch, seeing their children going through in that movie. So it was kind of a funny little part of the conversation there. But when she had recently had posted on social media that this movie had become available on Amazon where you can rent it and buy it, I had sent her a message letting her know that I've got the movie and I'm going to check it out later that day or tomorrow. I ended up seeing that later that day, and I'll let you know what I think. And she says, well, hopefully you'll hopefully be interested in doing a review. I said, well, I'll let you know if I will, depending on my schedule here. So having seen the movie in the first 40 minutes, I sent her a message and let her know that I thought you were great in the movie so far, and I am digging this movie. So yes, I would love to do a review for this film, and here we are now. So I can truthfully say that this movie was not what I expected, but it was certainly a welcome surprise in terms of with the direction of the story that we're following here with this character of Mecca. She's definitely the center point of this whole movie, but the various other things that occur along the way surrounding this character definitely does add a certain set of values in terms of like what this character has to go through in order for them to more or less find themselves. But I will be straightforward in saying right now that I will not get into any spoilers here, but I think I may go into some of that close to that spoiler territory in order for me to kind of reveal certain things that I have felt about the movie that I liked and didn't like as well. Because as much as I did enjoy the movie, there were some major issues that I had with the film, which I'll point out in my negatives here. But I will not get into spoilers here. But of course, I'll get into the plot synopsis, my positives, my negatives, and then my rating. A daughter of a local crime boss attempts to keep her life from spiraling down into oblivion, but dark secrets revealed from her past might push her over the edge. She finds out that something's hitting bottom is not low enough. And that right there is a film in a nutshell. So now let's get into my positives. My first positive with this movie is with Colleen Elizabeth Miller. She really is the best part of this whole film. And that's not to exclude all the other actors in the movie as well, because they've all done a phenomenal job, which I'll get into in a little bit here. But it really is her that is selling this story here, because in the opening sequence of the film, you can see right away that this person is in a downward spiral and they've been through a lot of shit, if you will. And in the opening sequence of the movie, it starts off with her pretty much telling her boyfriend that she's with in the beginning of this film to leave. And then it starts to escalate from there along the way too, where she is telling the guy that he's got to leave, and he's attempting to force himself onto her, in as far as like keeping himself to a place to stay, despite her wishes for him not to be there. And they have this altercation that starts off in the beginning of this movie, where she does get the upper hand. But then as the story progresses along the way, you start to learn more about her reputation, where she's pretty much a promiscuous woman that has gone around, if you will. So a lot of guys tend to take advantage of her, and she pretty much lets them, as long as she gains something for herself along the way too. So, and then we also come to find out later on, as I mentioned in the plot synopsis, that she is a daughter of a major crime boss in this area that this movie takes place at. So there was a lot of important details that we get to learn pretty early on. But the most important thing that I thought that she had done exceptionally very well in this performance here is that you get to see that despite the fact that she is pretty much a broken individual, but she still has a lot of endurance and strength about her, that she's able to put up a fight and keep herself moving forward despite those major hurdles she's going through along the way. And there's even some parts of the film too where you learn that she was a former drug addict, and then at that particular part of the film, you come to realize that she's trying to not go back into that as well, along with other things that comes with that as well, to previous people that she's met with that she's trying to avoid on purpose because they were a bad influence on her, whatever the case may be. But you certainly get to see that she's trying to find a way to get herself out of this funk that she's in, but it seems like all she knows is just this downward spiral that she's is heading into. But somehow along the way, there happens to be a man that comes across who speaks with her, who the names escapes me right now, but I'm sure I have the image for you guys to see here. But he basically offers her an opportunity to be able to get a job where she could help out a charity organization that will be paying her on a full-time basis, but dealing with domestic violence, domestic abuse, because he ends up seeing the markings on her neck from the previous scuffle that she had in the beginning of the movie with her boyfriend, that now at that point her ex-boyfriend. And then along the way, they have dinner together, and she was more or less expecting that this man was trying to sleep with her, and he's like, no, I'm not here for that at all. In fact, I want to offer you a job, and tells her what the job entails here. And she felt a bit insulted that the guy would offer a job based on the fact that he saw some marks on her that she'd be a viable candidate for a position of this sort, which was kind of like a level entry type position for this organization. And she took offense to that, but the guy says, just consider it, and if you're interested, call this number, and I put in a word for you, so work it out from there. And at that point, you get to see that she's trying to now, with this encouragement of someone saying, I believe in you, that she takes on that offer and ends up getting the interview, but without revealing too much along the way, because that's really kind of where the story does take a more or less a darker turn, where you start to realize that the sins of her past, if you will, have come back to haunt her again, and things start to escalate from there, where then the police start getting involved, and the fact that her father, who is a major crime boss in the respective area, is also heavily involved as well too. And there's a lot of a series of events that one person had who is connected with another person had inadvertently got involved with her, not knowing her connection with her father, and so on and so forth. That's all I'll be revealing to that extent here, which I thought was very fascinating, and how that was handled along the way. So hopefully when you watch the film, you understand what I mean by that, which is why I don't want to spoil it here. But it definitely does show, in my opinion, with the acting range that Colleen was able to deliver, because there's a lot of vulnerability with this character, and again, a lot of strength and a lot of endurance that she's developed throughout the years to be able to put up a fight and defend herself. But despite the fact that she has gone through a lot of relationships where she has been beaten down, she still manages a way to get herself back up and somehow keep moving forward despite the circumstance that she's in. And also due to the fact that she's also a person that has never really been loved per se, and you get to see that in the movie as the story progresses along the way, what had happened to her, and then hopefully with the events that turn out at the end of the movie that will lead up for the better, if you will. So again, a lot of praise for Colleen with her performance in the film, and with everyone else as well too in the cast. The gentleman that plays the mob boss, her father in the movie, the police officers, and also the more or less like the lackeys in the movie as well too, under the crime boss here that her father is in the film, and the gentleman that also had played more or less like her supporting moral support friend, if you will, that has come into her life to make things better for her, which you also get to find out a little bit about his background as well too, and the reasons why he made this offer for her, which again I won't reveal here. But it's a very interesting turn of event, because this was a scenario where she's accustomed to being offered something to get something in return, mainly with her giving something back in the form of sex, if you will. But there's a conversation that takes place and a revelation that comes along the way with that respective character of the man that helps her get this job interview and hoping to get work for this charity, that is very much a part of the story. And it doesn't feel like, in my opinion, like it's as if though I meant to say that it's tacked on. So when you watch the film, you understand what I mean by that here, because there's certainly a lot of great, wonderful character development that occurs that is very much important to the overall story here that we're following in this film. And I also want to point out too that the direction of the story under the director, John, who has written this film as well, I love the fact that he took on this more noir approach with this movie. And there's also, it's actually a wonderful sequence in the film where the entire film is pretty much black and white, but there are some moments in the film where it's kind of more or less like a dream sequence and some sort of flashback sequence as well too that are all in color. And when you watch the film, and especially when you get towards the end of this movie, you understand why those sequences are in color rather than in black and white as we're watching the film here, which is very much important with the overall story, especially for the character of Maggie, played by Colleen in this movie. So a lot of great, wonderful elements in this movie that I took away from here, because essentially this is a story of redemption. This is a story of coming back from this this horrible life that she's been thrown into here. And then when you understand the whole story and understand what really has happened to her along the way, it's a clear situation that this is a victim of circumstances here that she had no knowledge of. And then what does it get exposed to her along the way, you come to realize that you're essentially rooting for her at the end of the day, especially with this major reveal that occurs in the film. Not a surprise ending, but just more like an important reveal that helps with the development of this character that I truly did appreciate here. So for me, I'm going to say that's going to be the end of my negative. I'm sorry, the end of my positive, because there's a lot more that I would definitely want to reveal here, but it really does go more to that spoiler territory. And not that the things I want to reveal are going to be like, like some sort of surprise ending. It's nothing like that. It's just really important revelations that kept me invested as the story progresses along the way that I think you will all enjoy too, with me having to reveal any of that information there to you. So hopefully this will encourage you enough to go check out the film. So that'll be the end of my positives here. So now let's get into my negatives. The first negative that I have with the movie is actually with the altercation scene. So there's a few fight sequences in this movie. Not this isn't an action film by any means. It's not like this. It's more or less like a pretty much a grounded fight. And what's the best way I can say? The fight sequences in the film are meant to be realistic, but unfortunately for me, it didn't really work all that well. It clearly looked very choreographed, and it just I don't think it was edited all that good. I'm sure there's something that may have things have occurred that may have turned out that way for it not to be put well together, I meant to say. But that was really a major sticking point here for me when it came to the altercation scenes that occur, which are quite a few in this movie, and even a few shootout sequences as well too. Not major ones, but just some minor ones here, where it was kind of lacking in that department, where I felt like where the story in the movie that we get with the character developments works so well, the more or less the action sequences in this movie were far below all that wonderful factor of the other factors of this movie that worked so well for me, that it kind of took me out of the film. But once we got past that and the story picked up from there, I was able to look past it rather quickly here, because everything else surrounding those little parts of the film that I did not really enjoy as well made up for the lack of investment that I had in those particular sequences there for me. So that's the really first major negative for me that sticks out that I can think of here at this very moment here. But the other thing I can also point out too, when it comes to the overall aspect of the film, there were some parts in the movie where I felt like, again, this is just a personal nitpick of mine. So my opinion on the matter is not really good. Like, it's like a make or break it thing that this movie's not going to work for you because it didn't work for me in these certain instances here. But it really more has to do with certain editing choices when it came to some close-up shots and some certain transitions from one scene to the next. But again, it's nothing that really made the film bad. It was just more about, I just didn't prefer it. I would prefer something else to have a much more different form of transition from one scene to the next, or different type of shots for certain events that occur in the film that I would have liked to see better there. But again, that's not to say that John didn't do a good job in directing the film in those respective areas that I'm referring to here. It just didn't necessarily work for me all that well, but it was just kind of far in between when that would occur. But overall, the story in itself, the directing of the film, the whole noir aspect of it as well too, it certainly did work for me. But those are the first two major things that I can point out here that I think that really stick out for me as forms of negatives. There's another negative too that does come out off top of my head here, but that's actually in that spoiler territory. So without revealing what it is, but it's not something that I thought made the story any less better or any less good, I should say. It's really just more of like a preference about how I thought certain aspects of character development that were presented in the movie worked well in other areas, but didn't work as well in some other areas of the film, whether it be the same character as Maggie, played by Colleen, or some of the other characters in the movie as well too. But when it actually worked, it worked very well. But when certain parts of the other development of these characters, something didn't work for me in those instances where it just felt like it was inconsistent for some reason for me. And when I went to go back to watch the movie again, despite the fact that I felt like it was just a little minor thing that I'm able to overlook, or maybe I just was too quick to judge on it, I still had the same opinion on the matter here, despite the fact that it still worked as far as I can tell in the final cut of the film, but it just didn't necessarily work for me in certain instances. I know it may not make any sense here, but without really getting spoilers, it's hard for me to explain what I mean by that. But when you watch the movie, I'm hoping you understand with what I mean by that as well. But for me, that's gonna be the end of my negatives. So now let's get into my rating. I really did enjoy this movie. I will even go as far as to say I think this is a film that I really do hope that when people do go out and watch this movie, that I'll be frank, there are some parts of the film, the way that some sequences are put together just didn't click for me, which I was kind of referring to before about how certain scenes were transitioned from one scene to the next, or how certain shots were handled that didn't really work all that well for me. That I'm hoping that if people have those same issues that I had in watching the film, that they don't dismiss it right away and say, I'm not watching this movie, it looks cheap, or whatever the case may be. Because as the story progresses along the way, the story, the character development, the direction, as far as how John had put the film together here overall, did really work for me personally, which I thought really made up for those little areas that I felt like was lacking, especially those fight sequences that I thought needed some major work on. But overall, this is a very good film, and I'm hoping that one day this movie does come out on physical media. I don't know if it will, but if it does, this is a movie that I definitely would buy, because there's a lot of great qualities about this movie, but especially with Colleen, who I think is really the best part of this whole film. The overall movie itself is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it's really, really good. But Colleen, in my opinion, is the best thing about this whole movie, because her take on the character and offering some more or less like some very subtle comedic aspects of the movie, of the character, where there's a lot of sarcasm that she offers in this film, and also providing some real emotional depth, and providing some really great character development, that you can see that as the story progresses along the way, that she does a phenomenal job in doing that here. So I hope that this is a movie that will garner her a lot of attention, and people take notice of her performance here, and grant her more opportunities to try other things as well too, along these lines here, from what you get to see in this movie with the performance in this film. So for me, I actually would give this movie a solid cheers. And those are my thoughts on the film. Again, this movie is available where you can rent it and buy it on Amazon. I'll have the link in the description down below for you guys to check it out there, because I highly do recommend you do so. And if you have seen the movie, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the NRW. Make sure you share, like our videos, and hit the notification bell while you're down there as well too. And also follow NRW on social media, on Instagram, New Release Wednesdays, on Facebook, Nerds Rule the World, and on Twitter at the NRW. And you can follow me on my social media accounts, on Instagram and Twitter, Mr. Rob Medina, and on Facebook, simply just Rob Medina. And I have a show on the channel called You're So Cool with Rob Medina, and I have social media for the show as well. On Instagram, You're So Cool with Rob Medina, and on Twitter, You're So Cool WRM. And that'll be it for me this week, guys. I meant to say, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Until next time, stay safe out there, and cheers.